Hello everyone and welcome to this Blender tutorial. Let's see how to make this 3D animation with geometry nodes. First off, I recommend you to use a very dense mesh because it will give you a way better result. And yeah, this 3D animation will kinda stress out the performances of your PCs, mainly because we are going to create a few layers of this animation. So be patient because Blender might crash. Okay, and the first node that we are going to add is the split edges node, which basically allows us to split the edges of our mesh. As you can see, there's not a real difference now, but don't worry because we will see it later on, especially when we will create the displacement for the mesh. So what we are going to do next is basically to create a threshold within which our edges will split. And in order to do that, first off, we are going to add an empty, which will be our controller. Okay, so now let's add it into the geometry node tab, because we want the empty to influence the animation when we move it and when we scale it. So now we need a vector math node, and we need to set it to distance. We are setting it to distance because basically we are setting the distance between the empty and the position of our mesh, which in my case is this shoe. So to do that, we are going to add a location, but we want also to displace the location, and we do that by adding a mix color node, and then we can set it to soft light or linear light. You can choose which one you feel gives you the best result. So now we can add the position node, we can plug it in, and now in order to create a sort of displacement into the splitting of our edges, we are going to add this noise texture and we are going to plug it into the mix color node. Okay, I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible so it's easier for you to follow through. Okay, you can also move the factor based on your preferences if you feel that the noise texture is too evident. Of course, we can see it right now because we don't have plugged all the nodes yet, so don't worry. Now we are going to create the threshold, and we are going to do that by using a compare node set to greater than. All right. And what we need now is to subtract the scale from the location distance. So in order to do that, we are going to add a math node. Okay, we set it to subtract, plug the scale in, and finally we plug the value of our subtract node into the second value of our greater than. And basically our threshold is complete now, so we can plug the greater than value into the selection of our split edges node. As I was saying before, don't worry if you can't really see it right now because it's going to be pretty evident later on when we will create the displacement for our mesh, and we will be able to control the splitting of the edges with a map range node. Okay, great. So our node tree is going to grow quote unquote a little bit, and I don't want it to get messy. I want it to be as clean as possible. So let me duplicate some of the nodes that we are using in order to keep it clean and understandable. Okay, so now it's time to add a threshold for the geometry that we are going to delete, because basically we want the geometry to appear and disappear as we move or scale our empty. So let's duplicate the greater than, set it to less than, then duplicate both these nodes and set the second less than to greater than. Basically, we are saying to Blender that we want the mesh to appear within a range that we are going to set with these nodes. We also want the scale of the empty to influence this range, and in order to achieve this result we are going to use also these two subtract nodes that we duplicated before, and then we are going to plug them, one into the second value of our less than and the other one into the second value of our greater than. Okay, so we want to use both the less than and the greater than nodes. So we can use a math node set to add and plug into it the less than and the greater than. And now we are ready to delete the geometry. Let me just fix this. Alright. And to delete the geometry, we are going to use a delete geometry node. So first of all, let's move this node and then add the delete geometry node. Okay, so let's plug the add node into the selection socket. All right. All right. Let's tweak the values a little bit. We should be able to see the mesh appear. All right. Now, if we move our empty, of course, we will see a different portion of our mesh. Let me show you. All right. All right. Great. So basically what we have left to do for this first layer of our animation is the displacement. And we are going to do that with the set position node and a bunch of math node, and also we are going to duplicate the position section that we made in the first place, and we are going to use it to displace our mesh, but we are going to change the position node to the normal. So let me show you. Alright guys, we are ready to displace the mesh, so let's add a set position node right after the delete geometry node. Next, we are going to take the scale of the empty. We can take it from this handle right here, and we are going to plug it into a math node set to add. Okay, and now we can use a map range node, which basically will allow us to control the displacement. And we're going to plug into the value socket the distance node that we have right here. Alright, let's take the value and plug it into the map range node. Alright, let's plug the add value, and finally we are going to add also the scale of our empty, but without any other math node or stuff like that. Okay, so let's grab the scale. Alright guys, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to keep it as clean as possible. Alright, we are going to use the toMin and toMax values to increase or decrease the displacement. Okay, so as I was saying before, now we are going to duplicate this portion of our node tree. We are going to place it right here. Alright. Then we are going to add a multiply node. Okay, so you can duplicate the add and set it to multiply. And we're going to plug the two results into a vector math node set to multiply. Alright, let's plug the values. Let's grab these nodes, let's take them here, and then we can plug the value of our multiply node into the offset of our set position node. Now, as you can see, the displacement is kind of weird, and we want to fix it, of course. So we are going to delete the position node, and we are going to use a normal node, because we want our displacement to be based on the normals of the mesh. Okay, so we can delete the position node. And we can add a normal node. Alright, we can plug it into the mix color. Alright, and now as you can see, displacement is correct, and you can finally see all the edges splitted. Alright, so you can tweak the values. Basically, of course, you can tweak all the values until you're happy with the result. Okay, so now we can make the second layer, and to do that we can duplicate the first one, duplicate the node tree. Now we can silence the first one so it won't bother us while we are working on the second one. And now we are going to look for the value that we need to tweak. Okay, so I think that the less than is the one that we need, so we can delete all the subtract, greater than, and the add node. Okay, yeah, that's the correct one. In case you're wondering how I silenced the nodes that I selected, I did it by pressing M. So now we can just delete them because we don't need them at all. So let me make sure that I selected them all. Alright, now we can delete them and just play with the subtract value, which now is basically setting our threshold. All you have to do from now on is just tweak values until you're happy with the result. For example, now I'm just adjusting the threshold for my first layer and then reducing the scale, adjusting the scale of the empty. Alright. Okay, maybe just a little bit more. Let me turn it down a little bit. Alright, I think that's perfect. Let's increase the scale of the first layer. Alright. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so now we are at the final stages of our process, and we just need to add a couple of keyframes on our empties location. So let's press I and add a keyframe on the location here, then skip a few frames. Let me turn it down a little bit to 100, alright. And then press G to grab and move the empty. Okay. Alright. And now press I. If you want to adjust the interpolation mode, you can press T and set linear, as I just did. That's great. As you can see, I didn't add the metal layer because you can find a tutorial by Cartesian Caramel, which is great, and I will link it in the description, so make sure you check it out because it's really worth it, and it will add that little extra sauce to your animation. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful and learned something new, so feel free to like, comment, subscribe and share, and I'll see you on the next video.